relationship forward, it's all about moving forward. And what better way to move forward than to practice forgiveness? How do you forgive someone? I want to talk about that. And also I want to talk about how do you ask for forgiveness or get forgiveness from someone. So we'll start with the first question. How do I forgive? So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is saying that I believe that what you did is wrong. I'm judging it as being wrong. I'm prosecuting you as though you're wrong. You're defending yourself, but I'm not having it. I want to punish you, and I want to change something because you are wrong. So it's trying to take a behavior, something that happened, something that was done, and trying to say that under no circumstance will I forgive. Will I accept that it was just a mistake or just an error. I want to make that thing your identity, right? I don't want to say you made a mistake and whatever, now you're changing it and everything is cool. I want to say you made a mistake and you're never going to be able to live that down. Now, what a strange thing to do. Why would we do that? Well, I can tell you the only reason we do that is because our ego does that. The ego's like, I can use this. The ego's like, how can I take advantage of this? What can I get from this? Well, I don't have to be nice anymore, do I? Now I can, I don't have to show my affection anymore. I don't have to pretend to like that person anymore. I'm better than that person because I would never do such a thing. That just shows you their character, right? Wow. So if you're going to identify with those kinds of lines of reasoning, you're not likely to forgive, because if you do forgive, that takes away your identity, right? Also, your identity as a victim. So if someone's actually if you feel victimized by someone, you've established an identity as someone who's a victim in that respect. So if you say, yeah, you're forgiven, that's cool. Well, now you're just taking away your need to play victim. Imagine a courtroom. Now, of course, and it tells you, well, the whole justice system and the whole government is set up as this massive ego. Let's face it, that's what it is. Punishment and reward and guilt and all these things. This is stuff of ego. So we're governed by a government that's not based on love, of course not, right? Based on ego. But we don't need to bring those same values into our relationships. When I say relationships, of course, I mean all our relationships, friendships, even we're watching the news and we see that somebody committed a terrible crime or somebody is different from us, and we judge and say, like, it's a sinner, right? I can't forgive such people. Well, again, we're saying that that's not an error. So now let's look at this through love. We're talking about how do I forgive? Let's presume that you actually do want to forgive someone. Well, that's easy. Just forgive. Just know that behavior has nothing to do with you. It's about them, right? It's about them making a mistake. I even understood, and I don't know this to be true firsthand, but I've heard this, that the word sin in the original ancient Greek means missing the mark. So a sin just means making a mistake. What happens when you make a mistake? You miss the mark, you're shooting the bow and arrow and you miss your target, you shoot again, right? You correct the mistake. That's what sin originally meant. And of course, everything done with the ego is missing the mark. So basically, anything that isn't love is sin, but by sin we mean just simply missing the mark or making a mistake. So when somebody makes a mistake, which is to act without love, the way to forgive is to say, I realize that you didn't know that you were acting without love, and to say, well, can I help you, show you what the loving way to do this would be? Because it's not about the act, it's not about the specific thing, it's about how you do it. Is it with love or is it with the ego? So that's it. That's how easy it is to forgive. Understand that it was not a character flaw. It was nothing wrong with that person. They just simply made a mistake, and they may or may not be able or willing to correct it. But either way, it's just an error. And it's not their identity. It's the behavioral error. So if you do want it to teach a lesson, the problem with non-forgiveness is that what you're really saying is, I'm going to punish you, right? So you're saying that punishment teaches the correction. But punishment doesn't teach anything. Punishment is a form of violence, which in itself is a form of sin, right? Or error. So you're trying to correct something that was lacking love by doing something in response that is lacking love. So you're both now in error, right? So the correct response to any kind of thing that you can't seem to forgive is to respond in love, which is to say, I understand that you acted for the reasons that your ego, basically, you say to yourself at first, not to the person, that your ego thought that you were going to get something from this, and that's why you did it. And I'm sure what you're finding is that you're not getting the happiness that you expected. You're not getting what you're seeking through that behavior. Have you considered how that impacts the way that I feel? Have you considered the more loving way to go about this? And that's how you might correct and forgive at the same time. But of course, the person who's not willing to forgive really just wants they want to maintain their own ego and be able to punish, be able to shame, to judge, to shame, to blame, to prosecute someone, and to jail them, and to play victim, all these things. And that's why we don't forgive. We want to give our ego something to feed on, right? So when I say, how do I get someone to forgive me, right? Well, that's just the other side of the coin. It's not about your apology. You should make an apology and try to explain that you acted without love. That's the way. If you still don't get that forgiveness, then what you can see very clearly is that the person isn't interested in forgiving you. They're not interested in loving you. They're only interested in finding a reason to maintain their own ego. So it's okay. You don't have to. It's not your fault that you can't get forgiveness. Your job is to say, hey, I missed the mark here. I did something which hurt your feelings. I wasn't thinking about you. I wasn't loving toward that person or this person or whatever it may be. And if you were loving and someone's trying to still say you're guilty, that's not true. If you're doing it in love and no one's being harmed, it just isn't true. So let go of that burden of, he or she won't forgive me and I've apologized 10 times. They're just trying to maintain their ego. They don't want to escape the ego or undo the ego. Okay? So understand that that's all this is. Forgiveness is about it's a concept of ego, because when you remove ego from the equation, you always forgive instantly. You always recognize every behavior. You see through the behavior. You see through the ego of the other person, and you know that beyond that, beneath that, there's the true identity, which is perfect love and spirit. And so you can easily forgive that error, and you can try your best to slowly correct that behavior. But you don't hold on to guilt. Guilt is of the ego. It's a concept. You don't shame and blame. You don't punish or reward. These are things that ego does. And when you're perfect love and you've escaped that ego, you instantly forgive. You don't carry that burden. And carrying the burden of non-forgiveness, carrying the burden of ego, it's a huge burden. You don't want that burden, right? So I know it takes some time. This is a daily practice. And one of the ways you can do this daily practice is download the I Am by InfoBeing mobile app, Android or iPhone. And there's a blog every day. I do teachings trying to help, just a reminder of this stuff, because I found it's very important to hit this every day and to remember what is spirituality? Why are you doing spirituality? What are the benefits? Just a reminder every day. And then beyond that, of course, you can meet new people. You can enter some statements about what you're doing, about who you are, what you want, and meet compatible people better than fate. So it's a cool, fun thing to check out. I Am by InfoBeing.